Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sunday worship at the First Unitarian Congregation of Ottawa. My name is Mary, and I'm delighted to be your worship associate this morning. Whether you are taking part in this worship celebration from your home or wherever else you may be, whenever you may log on, you are welcome here. We acknowledge that our FirstU campus is located on traditional, unsurrendered, and unceded Algonquin and Anishinaabe territory, and that the work of reconciliation is a responsibility of our congregation and of all Canadians. Our goal is to educate ourselves and all who have ears to hear, to be of service to those who are at risk, and to advocate for justice. Do take care and take advantage of online opportunities at FirstU to stay in touch during this protracted pandemic. If you are new to FirstU and would like to learn more about us, please contact us through our email at welcome@firstunitarianottawa.ca. Following our service, please join us as well for our hospitality hour. And now, here is Lisa from the board with announcements for today. Lisa?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lisa Sharp, and I'm the president of the board here at FirstU. I have a few announcements for you today. First of all, there will not be a Sunday service on Zoom next weekend. We're not having a Sunday service at all because we're going to be joining the CUC's online national service at 1 p.m. For more information and the link, you can get it's going to be live streamed, but it's also going to have a Zoom link. You can check the EUU, our weekly newsletter, or you can check the CUC website. Our hospitality hour is going to start at 11 a.m. next Sunday because we want to give people time for a break before the 1 p.m. start time of the national service. We are hosting a special Zoom meeting with our members who live in Unitarian House on Monday, February 7th at 2:30 p.m. Please watch out. There's going to be a notice in the EUU, but we're also going to try to send an individual email invitation to all of our members who live in Unitarian House. If you don't receive this invitation in the next few days, you can contact myself or another resident who's a member at Unitarian House. The summary from the Affordable Housing Town Hall is posted on our website on our members page. This is like a big summary of all the topics that came up from our meeting a couple of weeks ago. Then we're going to have another meeting, and we hope to answer most of your questions that we received. The follow-up meeting is on Wednesday, February 9th at 7 p.m. All members are welcome to attend this meeting. The Zoom link will be again in the EUU if you're looking for it. Finally, if you're interested in helping us to dismantle racism, we are setting up an 8th Principle Task Force. And at this point, Carl Sonnen and myself are the contact people for the group. There are some excellent training sessions coming up. One of them is called Widening the Circle that are being offered by the CUC, our national organization. And a number of us have already signed up for this training program, and you are welcome to join us if you're interested. So please let us know. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Lisa. During the continuing pandemic, we encourage you to sign up to receive the EUU, our weekly email newsletter. Check our Facebook and Instagram pages and our webpage for notices and updates. Our calendar continues to be as full as ever, albeit much of it online. Whatever your heritage, whatever your faith, whomever you love, and however you identify, today you are a part of our spiritual community.
Mary, Lisa, Jen, thank you. Bonjour, mes amis. Good morning, one and all. We're here together virtually, but still together on this stunning, if rather chilly, last Sunday of January morning. I'm the Reverend Eric Meter, this faith community's lead pastor. We light our chalice this morning to these words adapted from those by Beth Graham. We light this chalice for the gift and the art of trusting, for trusting ourselves, for trusting our strengths and weaknesses, for trusting our hopes and desires, for trusting that special voice deep within. We light the chalice for the gift of trusting the unknown, for trusting the way the unknown and unknowable work through each moment of our living, for trusting the voice of mystery when it is still and small, as well as when it is loud and clear. We light this chalice for the gift and art of trusting. Our chalice is lit. And now our opening hymn of this morning, I Know I Can Go On.
Though days be dark with storms and burdens weigh my heart, though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. When sorrow heals my soul and burdens make me strong, the troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. My sister in my heart, my brother in my song, the troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. And though the journey is long, the destination is near. The troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. So brothers, take my hand, and sisters, sing my song. The troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on.
What an inspiring song, Jen. Thank you so much. Our call to worship this morning is adapted from words by A. Powell Davies. None of our private worlds is big enough for us to live a wholesome life in. We need the wider world of joy and wonder, of purpose and venture, of toil and tears. What are we, any of us, but strangers and sojourners, forlornly wandering through the night time until we draw together and find the meaning of our lives in one another, dissolving our fears in each other's courage, making music together, and lighting torches to guide us through the dark. We belong together. Love is what we need, to love and be loved. Let our hearts be open, and what we would receive from others, let us give. For what is given still remains to bless the giver, when the gift is love. Come, let us worship together.
I am Reverend Ellen Bell. I am the spiritual care visitor for this congregation. At this time in the service, we accept personal joys and sorrows, and we recognize these by placing stones in water and allowing the ripples to take the messages out to the universe, where people may offer their congratulations or their condolences. A stone this morning for Jan, who is in hospital with a broken pelvis and a broken wrist. We wish her speedy recovery. It is the 5th anniversary of the horrific attack on the mosque in Quebec City, and we remember those people who were killed and injured and hope that Islamophobia will be on its way out. There have been more graves found in more indigenous graves found, particularly in Williams Lake. This is an ongoing tragedy. This week, we recognized Holocaust remembrance. Hopefully, this will never happen again. And a stone of sorrow for the Patel family who froze to death in Manitoba while they were trying to cross the border into the United States. And COVID is still with us. So I urge everybody to maintain their vigilance in this regard. One last stone for all those joys and sorrows held in the recesses of our hearts. We will now have a moment of silence.
Hi to everyone, it's Nao, your Director of Religious Exploration. I hope everyone is doing really great on this Sunday. Today I'm reading to you a story titled One by Catherine Otoshi. Blue was a quiet color. He enjoyed looking up at the sky, floating on the waves, and on days he felt daring, splashing in rain puddles. Every once in a while, he wished he could be more sunny like yellow, or bright like green, more regal like purple, or outgoing like orange. But overall, he liked being blue, except when he was with Red. Red was a hothead. He liked to pick on Blue. Red is a great color, he'd say. Red is hot, blue is not. Then Blue would feel bad about being blue. Sometimes Yellow comforted Blue. Blue is a very nice color, she'd say, but Yellow never said that in front of Red. She never said, "Stop picking on blue." Green, purple, and orange thought blue was nice too, but they never told red to stop either. Every time red said something mean and no one spoke up, he got bigger and bigger and bigger. Soon red grew so big that everyone was afraid of him. No one dared stop him. Red picked on all the colors. Then everyone felt a little blue. Until one came. He had a different shape with bold strokes and squared corners. He was funny. He made the colors laugh. Red saw this and got very hot. "Stop laughing," he told yellow. "Stop laughing," he told green. "Stop laughing," he told purple and orange. And they did. Red rolled up to one. "Stop laughing," he told him, but one stood up straight like an arrow and said no. Red was mad, but one wouldn't budge, so red rolled away. And one turned to the colors and said, "If someone is mean and picks on me, I, for one, stand up and say no." Then yellow felt brave and said, "Me too." The green felt brave and said, "Me 3." The purple felt brave and said, "Me 4." Then orange felt brave and said, "Me 5." Blue saw the colors change. He wanted to count. Red grew red hot. He felt left out. He grew hotter and hotter and hotter. Red raced over to blue and said what he always did. "Red is hot, blue is not." But this time, blue stood up tall and became 6. "Red can be really hot," he said, "but blue can be super cool." Red blew a fuse and tried to roll over blue. But everyone took a stand and said no. Seeing them standing tall made Red feel very, very small. Then Red turned even redder and began rolling away. Blue called out, "Can red be hot and blue be cool?" Red stopped in his tracks. "Red can count too." Red rocked and rolled and turned into 7. "Everyone counts," they shouted. Then Red laughed and joined the fun. Sometimes it just takes. I hope everyone enjoyed that story. Happy Sunday to you all.
We have 2 readings for you this morning. I'll offer the first and Mary will offer the second. This is The Web of Life by Robert T. Weston. There is a living web that runs through us to all the universe, linking us each with each and through all life on to the distant stars. Each knows a little corner of the world and lives as if this were the all. We no more see the farther reaches of the thread than we see the future, yet they're there. Touch but one thread, no matter which, the thoughtful eye may trace to distant lands, its firm continuing strand, yet lose its filaments as they reach out, but find at last it coming back to the place from which it led. We move as in a fog, aware of self, but only dimly conscious of the rest, as they are close to us in sight or feeling. New objects loom up for a time, fade in and out. Then sometimes as we look on unawares, the fog lifts and there's the web in shimmering beauty, reaching past all horizons. We catch our breath, stretch out our eager hands, and then in comes the fog again. And we go on, feeling a little foolish, doubting what we had seen. The hands were right. The web is real. Our folly is that we so soon forget.
The second reading is from Who Then Is My Neighbor by Marilyn Sewell. A few years ago, I happened to be crossing a busy street when I noticed a young man bending over a huge scattering of nails that had spilled from a wooden box into the street. I thought to myself, well, he's got a job there, then started to pass by, not wanting to become involved. I've got things to do, I told myself. At that moment, a young woman walked over the spilled nails and without a word began helping the man pick them up. I felt slightly ashamed and realized I did really not have anything very pressing to do. So I too joined the young man in picking up the nails. Shortly after that, another man ventured onto the scene and asked, "Is there any method to this?" "No," I said. "We're just picking up nails, trying to save some tires." Soon all four of us were earnestly putting the nails into the wooden box. We didn't say much. Working together towards the common task, though, made us feel close somehow, and I suspect good about ourselves. It turned out that the nails did not belong to the first young man at all. Rather, they had fallen from a truck. The four of us were picking up nails that did not belong to us, dropped by someone we did not know, so that equally unknown motorists would not puncture their tires. Surprisingly fast, the nails were picked up, and the four of us went our separate ways. But that day stays in my memory. The anonymity of the city does not permit such spontaneous happenings, such sudden impulses towards community with strangers. I found myself wishing for more of that kind of involvement in a common task toward the good. I found myself loving people I didn't even know.
Thank you, Mary. The truckers' freedom convoy has arrived on Parliament Hill. No word yet on any nails that have been spilled or been picked up. On the CBC's The National earlier this week, a man cheering the convoy on as it rolled through Winnipeg commented on the spirit of solidarity he felt among those there along the route with him. "It's a togetherness like I've never felt before," he explained. Now, it might seem easy to dismiss such a comment as someone simply being caught up in the moment, but I think that would do a disservice to the motivations of those in the convoy and all those who have been cheering them on and are cheering with them now. There is power in groups gathered in shared purpose that should never be underestimated. This morning, I want to talk to you about the risks of perceiving ourselves as self-sufficient. To do so negates the lived reality of how closely we are linked with one another. 2 weeks ago, I lifted up the memory of the late South African Archbishop Desmond Tutu. A line of his, which I didn't share with you that morning, has been playing on a loop in my head since then. His words, "We are different so that we may know our need of one another, for no one is ultimately self-sufficient." Let me repeat that. We are different so that we can know our need of one another, for no one is ultimately self-sufficient. Self-sufficiency, that dream that we exist by and for ourselves alone, of being self-made people. To some degree, this is an ideal within many cultures, Take care of yourself, the adage goes. Back in the mid-'80s, when I was an undergraduate, I had a classmate who considered himself Persian. Please do not call me an Iranian, he said. His family had left after the fall of the Shah. I have no idea what he'd say today. But when I asked him how it felt not to be able to return of the land of his birth and childhood, he replied that it built character. How else do you make the best out of a bad situation, especially one beyond your control? It built character, he said, he claimed. And still, this weekend, and likely in the days to come, the rallying cry is freedom. Only freedom doesn't exist on its own. It's more accurately seen as an end of a spectrum with responsibility on the other side. So those who are crying freedom now are really saying that the balance between freedom and responsibility feels off kilter to them. I hope they appreciate the freedom they have experienced in coming together now. No one has stopped them. And as several of you have pointed out to me, other groups may not have been granted that same opportunity. Still, who are the members of this freedom convoy? The short bio with several convoy members in yesterday's Globe and Mail newspaper are a good start. I just wish the interviews had gone and will go into greater depth. Still, it's helpful to learn of Claudia Winterhalter, who grew up in West Germany and saw the impact of the totalitarianism in the East Germany. It's helpful to learn of Matt Rayner, who followed his grandfather and grandfather into trucking until the mandatory COVID isolation period after each interborder run proved untenable. So at 30 years old now, Mr. Rayner considers himself retired from trucking and now works as a tattoo artist, which allows him more time at home with his daughters. And then also in yesterday's paper is the letter to the editor by Pamela Sheehan, which provides a different and stark point of view. As an emergency nurse for over 40 years, she invites all those who are part of the Freedom Convoy to spend a day in an emergency department in a hospital to see the lived impact of the pandemic from that perspective, to observe the agonizing deliberations as to who receives what care when needs stretch capacity to the limit. Now, frankly, I know I could benefit from being alongside a truck driver on a long haul, as well as spending a day shadowing an emergency room nurse. Experiences that stretch us, that give us new opportunities, new experiences, are almost always helpful. I learned as much from working on a small construction crew for several months right after college as I did in many of the formal classes I took there. So when Matt Rayner, our 30-year-old retired trucker, talks about the days of isolation he experienced after each of those runs, I take what he says seriously. But please don't think I'm completely naive. I know that freedom is a great rallying cry. Responsibility, not so much. And as the circus magnate, P.T. Barnum famously stated, a fool is born every minute, and two to take him. That second part is often omitted, and it is arguably more important than the first. Donald Trump Jr., Elon Musk, and others in the public eye have spoken out in favor supporting the Freedom Convoy. And while Trump Jr. and Musk may not be what many would consider paragons of civic responsibility, at least Mr. Musk has been a creative force on the world stage. That said, he's had an interesting history as a taxpayer. We'll see how that goes in due time. But I digress. What I know is that we are less likely to get riled up against others when we have a lived understanding of them and their lives. What I know is that it is helpful to keep things in perspective. I remember last summer driving to church while listening to a Canadian broadcasting company radio show on COVID mandates. It was a talk show. People were calling in, pro and con. A woman called in to express her surprise and sadness, if not dismay, that mandates were so controversial now, saying something to the effect of, back when I started teaching, she was a public school teacher. Back when she started teaching in the 50s, I was told, she told us, that my employment was conditioned in part on being fully vaccinated. Neither I or my fellow teachers made a fuss back then. The rule made sense. We got the shots. Here again is the balance between freedom and responsibility at play and understood. But today isn't the 50s. Our cultural expectations have changed since then. And here is where I have to be careful not to launch into a rant. See, I'm tempted to blame Sony and Apple for this. Their Walkmans and iPods prompted many to tune out the rest of the world in favor of the soundtrack of their choice. But of course, those companies didn't create the demand all their own, though they may have manipulated it. We enjoy turning out the world for a while. Who wouldn't? At least if just for a while. The danger is in letting the wild become the norm, the expectation. Frankly, being cut off from responsibilities towards others, it feels easier, doesn't it? Even if doing so in any length of time may lead to loneliness. This has been one of the facets of life during these COVID years. While some are more comfortable with it, social distancing has, well, messed with the heads of many of us. I remember early on how people in my neighborhood then were walking out over the noon hour, more of us than ever before, working from home. Masks weren't yet the norm, and so we'd be out and about, but as we passed others on the street, changing course continually to give each other as much space and safe airspace as possible. It was both a lovely parade down the street and tragic at the same time. A colleague lived just 2 blocks down the street from Ann and I at that point. I'd see her jog by our house early each morning. A bit later in the morning, I'd walk our dog past her home. One day, she was out walking with her wife, a woman I'd heard about for years but hadn't yet met. So in greeting her, I reached out my hand and then stopped at the look on her face. Oh yeah, we're not doing that anymore. Ugh. Damn. What had become the most basic of human gestures was gone, at best on hold. That ancient ritual, which as far as back as at least as I understand it, had its birth back in the Middle Ages, when you would extend your hand to another as a sign that you didn't bear a weapon. You wished friendship and cooperation with them, not adversity and conflict. We can't shake hands these days. I wonder what the new normal will become. I would give anything to extend a hand and not have the person I've met recoil in shock, understandably. But I digress again. The title of this morning's service, this reflection, is The Legacy of Private Worlds. While taking the opportunity to reflect on the Freedom Convoy and what it may mean, the point I had been planning for today in that title is that beyond the personal, there really is no legacy of private worlds worthy of the name legacy. Private worlds are best left for daydreams. In reality, any private world would prove a thin one at best, and at best unnuanced, unsatisfying for any length of time. I think of this every time I see an ad in the paper for a private bank. What a fallacy. I don't care how good that service would be. That reflects a narrow, narrow hope. And I wonder what the hopes of those taking part in the Freedom Convoy really are. I hope that in what they're doing and in the stand they're trying to make, they do feel listened to. Of course, that will depend in large part on what they end up saying and what they do over the next few days. What I'd love is for even one of them to take Nurse Sheehan up on her offer and spend a shift alongside an emergency room nurse. And I'd love for healthcare workers, reporters, my local representative to listen to the likes of Matt Rayner talk about trying to make both ends meet while enduring the periods of isolation he and other truckers were required to. Could there have been better plans or more targeted support to them? I don't know. What I do know is that the divide between those in and supporting the Freedom Convoy and the rest of the nation feels uncomfortably familiar. Years ago, back in the States, I preached on how those back there in the States might bridge the divide reflected in what was then called the culture wars. Now that divide has only grown deeper, though the phrase culture wars carries only the meekest of meanings. It doesn't capture anyone's attention in the States anymore. As a cautionary tale, back in 2016, when Hillary Clinton, running for president, said that half of Donald Trump's supporters belonged in a basket of deplorables, she helped seal the election for him, motivating working class folks to vote for him better than he ever could have by himself. Earlier in the week, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau described the protesters as a fringe minority. I fear he will regret those words. I expect they will be remembered. The motivations that brought so many from east, west, and north to Parliament Hill this weekend will be varied. To those who confuse freedom with license to just do what they want, and what they want is to end COVID restrictions, well, don't we all grow up? A nation's wealth is its social and physical infrastructure, the means by which people work in alignment with one another, and the roads and bridges that make doing so possible. And it seems to me that there is a facet of social infrastructure that is both vital, it's necessary, and it's at risk. It's our willingness to practice the art of trusting one another. And if trust feels too much in this light, at least to be willing to listen to others and to take them seriously. I was thrilled to see that the topic of our faith community's upcoming Thursday discussion circle will be trust in our systems and institutions. Thank you, Andrew Drake, for hosting such a timely conversation. Details will be on our church website, and we're in last Friday's EUU for the church members. When it comes to trusting others who express quite different opinions than mine, I try to remember an adage from a man named Dave Shearer, who says, "Hear the biography, not the ideology." Hear the biography, not the ideology. Now, I have to tell you that Shearer is a hip hop youth pastor whose stage name makes his goal and his method clear. He goes by the name agape, the ancient Greek word for the highest form of love. It's a little self-aggrandizing perhaps, but gets a point across. As Benjamin Mathis comments on agape's message, when someone has a point of view we find difficult to understand, disagreeable, or even offensive, we must look to the set of circumstances that person has experienced that resulted in their point of view. Get their story, their biography, and you'll open up the real possibility of an understanding that transcends disagreement. Like the roots of a tree, our stories, which create our beliefs, are completely unique and also connected. It is through story that we can find common ground enough to coexist in the face of great, often necessary tension. When you find yourself in disagreement, ask one question. Will you tell me your story? I'd love to know how you came to this point of view. Years ago, prominent Unitarians often spoke about our faith as one of freedom, reason, and tolerance. And while freedom and reason can also benefit from some unpacking, tolerance is especially tricky. As an old philosophy professor of mine would have said, tolerance is necessary, but never sufficient. Instead, I think we're better served by practicing the art of respect. As Wendell Berry, the farmer and writer from Kentucky in the States, says, if I merely tolerate my neighbors on the assumption that all of us are equal, and that means I can take no interest in the question of which ones of us are right and which ones are wrong. It means that I am denying the community the use of my intelligence. It means I am not prepared to defer to those whose abilities are superior to mine, or to help those whose condition may be worse. Frankly, it means I can be as self-centered as I please. He continues, in order to survive, a plurality of true communities require not egalitarianism and tolerance, but knowledge, an understanding of the necessity of local distances, and respect. Respect, I think, always implies imagination, the ability to see one another across our inevitable differences as living souls. We are all, every one of us, living souls deserving of respect, trucker, nurse, you name it, all of us deserve respect. Together, we may find the will, together may we find the will to search out the biographies of those with whom we may not agree. In terms of the story Neo shared with us earlier, all colors count. My retired colleague, Barbara Hamilton Hallway, puts it this way. in something that she uses as benediction and I have used more times than I can count in wedding ceremonies I've officiated. Truly listen to each other. Speak what each must speak, but always be ready to disarm your own heart, to which I can only add, Amen. May it be so. And now, Music Jen will introduce our morning's anthem. Jen?
This morning's anthem is a piece called Hands Across the Universe by David Childs. It's a piece about community, about hope. It was recorded by Chalice Choir in November of this year, and the pianist you'll hear on this track is Abigail Sanchez Roja. Thank you.
As a member of Chalice Choir, I thank you, Jen, for recording that and for us for singing it. It was very powerful, and anyone who wants to join Chalice Choir, do come and join us. As you may know, we've not been collecting Sunday service offerings for almost 2 years. Yet during the continuing pandemic, we rely on your generosity as much as ever. Wherever and whenever you are watching this, you are invited to go to our website or contact our finance manager to find out how to make a donation or to keep up with your pledge. Our gifts are freely given and gratefully received. We dedicate these gifts to the work of this community of faith, serving human wholeness, caring for the planet, upholding religious freedom, welcoming the stranger, loving one another. And now, our closing hymn, We Would Be One.
We would be one as now we join in singing our hymn of love to pledge ourselves anew to that high cause of greater understanding of who we are and what in us is true. We would be one in living for each other to show the world a new community. We would be one in building for tomorrow a nobler world than we have known today. We would be one in searching for that meaning which binds our hearts and points us on our way. As one we pledge ourselves to greater service with love and justice, strive to make us free.
Thanks again, Jen. Before we begin to close this time of worship and reflection, a reminder that our hospitality hour will begin at 11:30. Between now and then, you may want to take a screen break or watch the music videos we'll host before hospitality hour begins. The choice is yours. We extinguish our chalice this morning to words adapted from those by Anya Samler-Michael. When faced with a challenge, we can turn toward one another or we can turn against. We can ignore the cries of our neighbors or we can let them cry into the arms of our witness. We can respond with indifference to systematic injustice, or we can commit once again to its undoing. Great souls, tales will be told of how we responded when any particular hell was visited upon our earth. Let us know and let it be said by generations to come that when the pain of our separation was revealed, we moved closer to the promised land of our beloved community. This morning's chalice is extinguished, but our connections and our faith remain. With that said, Jen, would you please bless us again with song?